Hi, and welcome to my channel. My name is Lydia, and I do videos on homemaking, Orthodox Christianity, which is my faith, and motherhood. And today I am excited to share my positive birth story at a birth center with my second daughter, Isidora. Now, like I said, this was my second time having a baby at a birth center. I really like having my babies at the birth center, and so I am happy that I can share my experience with everybody here on YouTube. So in this video, I am planning on sharing why I chose a birth center, how I dealt with the pain, my support system, what I did for postpartum care, and more. So stick around because I am going to cover all of those topics and more. So first of all, I chose a birth center over having my baby at home or at the hospital because I, one, feel comfortable at the birth center, two, because we had just moved and we moved into this small duplex where there wasn't a whole lot of room, and also the walls are really, really thin sometimes, it seems. And so I didn't want to be paranoid about my neighbors maybe hearing every single thing that happened over here. And so I decided that the birth center would be a good alternative. Also, I've never really been one to feel the most comfortable at the hospital. Of course, I understand that there's a time and a place for the hospital if need be. However, I had a low risk pregnancy and I felt like we would be just fine if I had the baby at the birth center. Also, I did a lot of things to prepare for labor, so I would be sure to exercise. I would take walks with my oldest daughter, Juliana, around the block sometimes, or we would go to the store where it was air conditioned and just walk around in there. I would also do Pilates every now and again. And so I tried to really have some movement integrated into my daily routine just so that I could get this baby into a good position for when it was time for labor. Also, I tried to eat a lot of nourishing foods and have a well-rounded diet. I tried to do fermented foods like kombucha, sauerkraut, sourdough bread. I would also have a lot of protein, and I would take beef liver capsules as well. I would also try to do some fiber too by eating various fruits and having smoothies and stuff like that. And also taking my prenatals and magnesium especially, and a probiotic to help out are all some of the things that I did, as well as I would try to stay hydrated. So what that looked like for me was drinking sparkling water, drinking different herbal teas or black tea, that sort of a thing. I really like Earl Grey tea. That's one of my favorites. So I would drink that every once in a while. I really like Element or LMNT. I don't know really the right way to say it, but I really like their electrolyte packets. So I would drink a few of those each week, just trying to really think of creative ways that I could stay hydrated and not have to worry about losing that hydration that is key to a healthy pregnancy. I would also pray a lot. Prayer is really important to me. It's a huge part of my life and my faith. And so my husband and I would pray for our unborn baby, that the baby would be healthy, or that whatever the outcome would be, that God would make it so that his will is done and that we would be able to accept it and go with the flow. So we would pray for the baby a lot. I would also go and see a chiropractor to get adjusted every few weeks, and I feel like that really helped, especially with my body changing so much and just getting the baby into a better position for when it was time for labor. And then towards the end of my pregnancy, I would drink red raspberry leaf tea. Now, I am no healthcare provider or specialist by any means in pregnancy and labor, but I do truly feel like the red raspberry leaf tea did help a bit. And if you're not familiar with the effects of drinking red raspberry leaf tea, then I would say just kind of look them up. Drinking the red raspberry leaf tea really did help me loosen up, so to speak, so that I could have the baby a little more easily. Now, I know that there are some people who say that the red raspberry leaf tea doesn't really work for them, and that's okay. I don't really think that it's a one size fits all type of thing. I think that it depends on who you are and a lot of other variables and things about you. But for me, I think that it truly did work. So I would drink that as well. And also I would watch and listen to and read all kinds of other positive birth stories like this one. That way I kind of got myself into a good mental space about having the baby, because my first time having a baby, it was positive, but it was just very long and intense. And I honestly was a bit afraid to have another baby. I was scared that it would be super long again, and I was worried and anxious about it. But listening to other birth stories, especially of moms who had had a baby again and their second time or their third time, or, you know, whatever time it was having another baby, I would listen to these stories and I would feel inspired and I would feel a lot better just hearing that most of the time labor after the first is a lot shorter. Not always, but a lot of the time it can be. So that made me feel a lot better. And then as far as a support system went, I had my husband at the birth center, as well as 2 midwives, and there was also a birth assistant there as well, who is also a family friend of ours. So it was pretty full, but I am really thankful for all the people who were there with me and helped support me. My overall experience at the birth center was really good too. We got there when I was about 7 centimeters dilated, and as soon as I got there, I said I wanted to try and have a water birth. And so the midwife got the tub ready. I sat in the tub, and a couple hours later is when little Isidora was born. Now, as for the pain management and dealing with the contractions, I do have a couple different things that I did. So one of them being aromatherapy. In fact, I happened to have had some herbal teas sitting out on my table that I needed to put away that I got from somebody. And so I remembered that they were there on the table, and I would go out to the kitchen and sniff them every so often just to try and take my mind off of the contraction when the contraction was happening. And I will say that it did work, especially in the very early stages of labor and contractions. It really helped me. And so I got a little Ziploc bag and I poured some of the herbal loose leaf tea into it, and I put it in my birth bag to also take to the birth center. I would also just pace back and forth from the living room to the kitchen, trying to think of other things. I did try to take a bath at home to see if that would maybe relax me a little bit. And I went up and down the stairs a few times, but I only did that, like I said, a few times, because every time I would go up or down the stairs, the contractions would ramp up, which was good, but at the same time, I was like, I'm not quite ready to have this baby, because I was still a little bit anxious. And because it was my second time having a baby, I realized just how intense pushing can be. It is exciting because you're about to meet baby, but it is also, like I said, very intense. I would also have my husband give me a hug or maybe massage my back a little bit while I was having contractions. Although the further I got along, the less I wanted him to touch me, and I just wanted to be left alone. And when I was at the birth center, I got right into the tub. Like I said, I was on my back in the water. I had somebody hold one leg up against one side, and then I put the other leg on the other side, and I would squeeze somebody's hand while having my legs in that position. And this was right as I was getting into that transition and ready to push. So this was right before I met the baby. And This was the most intense part of labor. I also was gripping onto the faucet. I almost felt like I was going to rip the whole faucet out. It was right here on my side. So I was gripping that. Somebody was holding one of my legs up over here. My other leg was over here, and I was holding onto somebody's hand. So I had two hands here, two legs there, and I was just ready to have that baby out. Something that happened during labor that was kind of unexpected for me was not being able to push the baby out right away. So what happened was the baby started crowning and I could see the light at the end of the tunnel, but I got really exhausted all of a sudden and I felt really lightheaded, like I was going to pass out. So everybody was just reminding me to breathe. And I tried to breathe through the contractions and really bear down and push the baby out. But the baby felt a little hung up for what felt to me like some minutes, but I think it was more like an hour or so of me trying to push. So the baby got hung up and she did have some light bruising around her head. Sometimes you just can't really control everything that goes on during labor, and that is okay. So of course we ended up getting the baby out eventually, but it just wasn't quite as fast as I thought maybe it would be. And so I was gripping on the handle of the tub. Like I said, somebody was holding one leg on one side, my other leg was on the other side. I was squeezing somebody's hand. I was pushing. When I finally mustered up enough strength to start pushing again, and I gave about 2 or 3 pushes and the baby came right out. Honestly, to me, it felt like a torpedo or something because there was so much pressure that had built up and was then just released. But my husband said that it wasn't quite like that. So I don't know. I mean, I felt like that. My husband said it just didn't really look like that, but she still went straight into the water. I had my water birth and it was a very beautiful experience. Now, my first time having a baby, which you can go and find that video also on my YouTube channel. It's my positive birth story as a first-time mom with my daughter, Juliana. That was a lot more intense. It was about 30 hours altogether of labor. I ended up having back labor when I was trying to have Juliana. And so that was just a lot harder for me, which made me a lot more anxious, I feel like, for this time around. However, I was able to overcome it, thanks be to God, and get through it. And so I am so thankful for that. And I ended up coming out of having a baby feeling really positive and good about my overall birth experience. I had such a wonderful support system and team behind me, supporting me. And I really can't ask for a better outcome. The baby was healthy, everything just went really well. So after I had my baby, Isidora, we stayed at the birth center for a few hours so that we could just relax and wind down a little bit after such a exciting, chaotic afternoon. I took what you call a sitz bath. So it's, I believe, different bath salts kind of, but they're supposed to be healing, especially after you have a baby. So I sat in that for a while in the very tub that I just had a baby in. My husband held on to Isidora for a while and did skin to skin, and I also did skin to skin with her too. And I want to say I took a shower. Yeah, I think I took a shower, and then I got into some comfortable clothes. We ate some food and then got into the car with our little newborn Isidora and went home. And then after we were home, my mom came over with my daughter Juliana, and Juliana got to see Isidora for the first time, and it was so sweet. It was such a precious moment and I'll never forget it. As far as postpartum care went, I made sure that I had some stuff stockpiled in my freezer. So this really kind friend of mine, who actually was also at the birth as the birth assistant, came over about a month before I had Isidora, and she helped me prep all kinds of foods to keep in my freezer for after I had the baby. So we made some egg bites and some breakfast burritos, as well as some soup just to have on hand to eat after I had the baby and didn't feel like cooking. I also had my grandma, two of my grandmas come over, and my mom come over every once in a while. So they all kind of took turns coming over and helping me out. And to be honest, I was nervous at first because I knew that having a toddler and having a newborn would be really hard, 2 under 2. And it was quite an adjustment, but once we got the hang of things, it got a lot better. And that transition from having 1 to 2 kids, I would say was a lot easier for me than having 0 to 1 kids. Now I know that it's different for everybody, but that's just my experience. So some advice that I would give is always trust your gut instinct. Now I know this is a cliche, but always trust your gut and go with whatever makes you feel most comfortable. So if the hospital doesn't make you feel comfortable, and you're a low-risk pregnancy, or you have a low-risk pregnancy, maybe look into a home birth or a birth center birth. Of course, like I said, I'm not a healthcare professional, and always you should ask your OBGYN or midwife what they think would work best for you, but that's just my recommendation. Always trust your gut instinct. And that brings me to my conclusion. So I had a really positive birth. I was able to prepare really well, lean into different support systems that I had, such as family and friends. I had different pain management tools that helped me get through the contractions and labor, which was also really good. The second time having a baby was a lot more smooth than my first time having a baby, and I am so thankful for that. Overall, it was just such a beautiful process, and everything worked out how it should have worked out, and I am just forever thankful of all of the blessings and resources that I have. I thank God. Comment below if you have a positive birth story that you would like to share. Also, be sure to subscribe and like if this provided you with any type of inspiration. I hope to see you again next time. Thank you and bye.